Hello, I'm Lorna and welcome to my channel Thread and Yarn. This is a channel where I talk about the clothes that I've made, so often sewing, knitting, or things that I've done like naturally dyeing yarn and fabrics and quilting. And today I thought I would focus on one particular pattern, the Zadie Jumpsuit. I'm wearing one right now. It's been an incredibly popular pattern in the sewing community. I see Zadies that I recognise out in the street, so I recognise it as a Zadie. I think it must be one of the most made sewing patterns ever that's been designed by a sort of independent individual rather than a big company. And it's a great pattern. I have made quite a lot of them now, so I thought, here are some of them behind me, I thought I would just talk through the ones that I've made. And I've made alterations and modifications to pretty much every single Zadie jumpsuit here. They're all different from each other, not just because the fabrics are different, but the cut is slightly different and they each got different mods. So whether you've made the Zadie before or you're thinking about making it, hopefully this will be interesting and useful for you. The Zadie jumpsuit is a sewing pattern by Paper Theory. Paper Theory has not asked me to talk about this or anything. This is just independent because I like the pattern so much. And I was sort of inspired to do this video because Orchid's Heart, who is a YouTuber and Instagrammer who I follow, did something similar for the hinterland dresses she had made. And I thought, I haven't made the hinterland dress, and it was a really useful overview. And I thought that I know the Zadie so well, and I've had some requests before to talk a bit more about the alterations I've made to them. So I thought I would do something similar. So yeah, check out Orchid Heart's video. I'll put the link in the description below if you're interested in sewing up a hinterland dress or just want another cozy YouTuber to watch. So yes, I've made lots of different versions and they've each got different modifications. I first tried the Zadie. I actually don't have my very first version with me at the moment. I'm not sure where I've put it. I might have left it somewhere, or it's in a to mend pile that's not my main to mend pile. But it was one of the first sewing patterns I sewed when I picked up sewing again as an adult. I definitely tried to just self-draft stuff at the beginning, which is what I'm doing now, but now I've got a lot more experience and knowledge. I don't think I really knew what I was doing at the beginning, but it definitely helped me explore and experiment. But when I first started using an actual sewing pattern, the Zadie was, I think, the first or one of the first patterns I tried. And there's lots of reasons for that. Firstly, it was all over Instagram at the time. I don't know if it's 2019, maybe. It was about 5 years ago, I think. And it was all over Instagram. I'd seen lots of people make them, lots of different body shapes wearing it, and it seemed like a good beginner pattern. It had enough in it to build my skills and to test me a bit, but it seemed approachable. And having made lots of versions since then, I think it definitely is a good beginner pattern. It seems like it might be quite daunting if you're worried about sewing a jumpsuit. Something about it being an all-in-one piece might feel a bit intense for a first pattern, but it's got quite a relaxed fit. This one is modified, so the if you were to make the Zadie as the pattern describes, it's got quite a loose fit, and it's got the waist high here, which really helps. I think having something that does not have a fixed shape around here when you're first starting out is great, because it really allows you to adjust the fit if it's not quite right. And also just for comfort, I really like that, which is also why I quite like having like drawstring or elasticated waists, or just like a lot of positive ease around the waist. I think it just feels really comfortable. So I thought I would talk you through the different versions I made. I'm not going to do them chronologically. I'm just going to do them talking through and focusing on the different sort of alterations and hacks I've made. And the reason I've got this one on first is that although it's slightly more fitted than the original, it's the one I've made the least modifications to. So this is a Zadie jumpsuit made in a cotton shirting fabric from So Me Sunshine. Now, cotton shirting it's 100%, well, this is 100% cotton, but it's got a bit more structure to it. Think of like office work shirts. It's got that kind of feel, that kind of structure. And I made it to wear to a drinks event before a wedding in this light lilac colour, because I thought it felt like not so formal as to be the actual wedding reception itself, but it felt quite smart and sort of structural, and like it would keep its lines. And I think it definitely did that. The only modification I made, because in every other way I made it exactly to pattern, was to size down. So one thing I would say about the Zadie is that the sizing is very generous. So I saw this before I made it the first time, that lots of people had said they wish they'd sized down a couple of sizes, and I did size down either 1 or 2 sizes. I think it might have been just sized down 1, and I was really happy with the fit on that. And I have probably gone up a dress size since then, and I still sized down 1 on here. So I would say this is more fitted than the original one was on me when I first made it. I'll put a picture there and you can see a bit what I mean, but you can see there's a lot more ease and a lot more drapiness on that one. That is also a much drapier fabric than the one I've got on here, but this is quite fitted. I'll show you a full length shot as well. This fabric does make it feel less drapey, as I said, but it still fits me really well. So even though I size down from my measurements, you can see it still fits me. It's sitting nicely on my shoulders. When I wrap my arms around the front, it's not too tight across the back. I've got lots of movement, and I'll show you around the hips as well. It fits really nicely, and the legs are quite wide, as is in the pattern. The only thing I would say about the legs is they do run quite short on the pattern. I'm just over 5'7", and I think they're not just cropped, they are basically sort of mid-calf length for me. So I do tend to add length to the Zadies. I didn't for this one because it was pretty hot summer, and I just thought it would look really cute with some heels for the reception. But generally I do tend to lengthen it. So this one is exactly the shape of the pattern, just I size down. Now I'm pretty happy with this one. I'm happy with the way I finished it. I think this is, apart from the dress version here, this is my most recently made Zadie, and I've learnt lots about the finishing details over the years and just generally built up my sewing practice. So I'll show you some other Zadies that I've made. Now there's this one, which is in this beautiful Merchant & Mills winter hem check. I was really keen to get this Zadie out of, I think I only had 1.4 metres of the linen, which is way less than it says you need. And generally in sewing patterns, I feel like you can be quite creative and you don't necessarily need the amount of fabric that it asks for. But I was really pushing it with this one. So I love it, it's really comfortable, but I did make some errors on it, and there are some modifications I made which I wish I hadn't. So the thing is with the Zadie, the pockets, you can actually see the sort of inside of the pocket. It makes up the front of the leg. So you can't, if you're running out of fabric, just use a different colour fabric for the pocket bag, because it actually forms part of the front of the leg. You can see it from the outside. I suppose you could cut the pocket in half and just use a patch that you know, to cover up the bit that you could see, and then use a different fabric on the inside. That would require a bit of patchwork. But I didn't really have enough fabric for pockets on this Merchant & Mills version. So what I did was reshape the leg a bit and the pocket and redrafted it as if there was no pocket. So it doesn't have a pocket, and it's just got fabric sort of continuously down the front. So that, I mean, that worked technically, but I'm really disappointed that it doesn't have pockets. What I should have done, and what I may do, is unpick it and set inseam pockets in. I think that would be fairly simple. It just would be a slightly different shape. But I think I might do that so it does have pockets, because it's quite annoying not having pockets. I realise I really like to have somewhere to put my hands when I'm talking, or that's a little gnat has been flying around my room. I really like to have somewhere to put my hands when I'm talking, or just put keys in. So I'm really missing not having pockets on this, so maybe I will unpick and do inseam pockets. The other error on this one was that I lengthened the rise. So the rise is the measurement from the front of your waistband down under your bottom and back up to the centre back of your waistband. That's what's used to determine sort of the length that you need to be able to walk around in it and then sit down and it not ride up and be too tight. Some of the Zadies they're just about right on me with the rise, but I wanted this one to feel really comfortable and a bit slouchy. And I lengthened the rise, and I only lengthened the rise by, I think it was a few centimetres, but it made quite a difference, and it is too much. It does sort of sag down a bit, and I think I can tell that the rise isn't in the right place. So that's a bit of a shame. It's quite hard to sort of rectify that now. I did sew it up a little bit more, but the fact is that it's just a bit too long. I mean, what I could do is generally unpick this, and I could detach the bodice from the legs, and then I could cut off the top section. I could sew my inseam pockets while I do that, and then I could just lift the whole trouser leg up a bit. It would mean the legs were a bit shorter, but I think I might prefer that to it being too long a rise. But I'll try it on. I'll show you what I mean about the rise. But that's the modifications I made to that, and I would not necessarily recommend it. So I'm not really tall, but I'm relatively tall in the population, and I don't think I need to adjust the rise on the Zadie. Maybe by a tiny bit. Maybe it's because I'm sizing down one. Maybe if I kept the rise from my size, but I didn't, but I just graded in everywhere else. So I would probably just keep this and then adjust the size everywhere else. So I was only adding maybe 0.5 centimetre to 1 centimetre on. But I'm quite keen to mend this one and just adjust it so that I get a lot more wear out of it, because it is really pretty and I do love the fabric and the colours. I like layering up in the winter and over the top of roll necks, or wearing it with a cardigan or a jumper. So I do love it, but I need to adjust it. So then I'll move on to this one here. Now this one here is definitely my most worn Zadie. I love the fabric. It is Merchant & Mills in their ginger colourway of their 185 linen, which is their sort of standard linen range. And I made it pretty much to pattern. I sized down again like I did on this one. The only other thing I did differently was I tapered the legs in. So as you saw on my purple one, the legs, according to the pattern, are kind of wide. They're not flared, but they are quite a wide leg. This one has got a tapered leg. And I did it because I wanted a kind of evening-y jumpsuit, not as sort of formal a fabric as this, but something that felt a bit smarter. I kind of wish I'd left the legs wide, because this looks like the one that they made for the sample for the main pattern, other than the fact that the legs aren't wide. And I think now, I made this a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, and I think now I'm happier with things being a bit wider. Or, you know, it's brought in at the waist, it doesn't need to be tight everywhere. I'm much more comfortable now with that, sort of having more ease in my clothes. So I kind of wish I'd left it wider. It's not a deal breaker though. I'm not heartbroken about it. I still love it. I wear it a lot. And I definitely don't just keep it for evenings. I wear it in the day. I often layer this over all necks. and it's super comfortable. I'd really recommend making one in linen. I would probably sew it up in a less expensive fabric first to check your fit, see if you like the pattern. But when you're comfortable with it, I would definitely recommend sewing it with linen. I think that the pattern just really suits it, that kind of slightly slouchy shape, and the softness as you wear the linen, it just softens and softens. It makes it such a comfortable outfit. And yeah, I wear this colour and this Zadie all year round, so big fan of this one. I also lengthen the legs, so I'll show you full length as well and you can see what I mean. Now this Zadie is quite different. I made this one increasing my formal Zadies. So I made this one for a uni reunion. I talked a bit about it in some of my other videos, but I made it in this Cupro fabric. It's like a brushed, almost looks like suede. Now, Cupro is a reconstituted plant fibre fabric that's supposed to use less water and just generally be a little bit more sustainable. A lot of fabric production isn't very sustainable, and Cupro is not perfect either, but it is better. But it's got this quite like sand washed suedey look to it, and it falls like viscose or silk, so it's got a really nice drape. And this was described to me as rust brick red. It is definitely not. It is like a raspberry, like a dusty raspberry colour, I would say. And when I got it, I was like, oh, I really don't wear pink. I would never have chosen it if it had been described as raspberry. But actually, when I held it up, I did really like it. Sometimes it's nice to sort of be accidentally forced out of your routine to try something a bit different. This felt to me like a very bold colour. But when I look at it now, I think that's still very muted. It's still very dusty, and it's not like a bright pink fuchsia colour, which I feel like I can't really wear. I find as a sort of soft autumn colouring, really sort of vivid bright colours like that wash me out. So I tend to live in the murkiness and the muted tones. So this still fits in with that. And I wanted to make it really smart, and I was trying to think of other ways to really sort of showcase the fact the fabric was quite a smart evening-y fabric. And I decided to do a lined bodice. The only issue was I didn't have enough fabric, because I had this idea after I got the fabric. So to give it the effect of being a lined bodice, so when I say lined bodice, it's because the Zadie pattern is finished around the edge with binding normally. So you've got your raw edge here and then it's encased in binding. But this one, I didn't want that sort of the binding overlap, and I didn't want the top stitching. I wanted it to be a nice clean finish, which it is. And I only had enough fabric, I should say, to line the front bodice. So I have done that. And I did exactly the same. So I've sewn the darts on the inside as well. I've done just mirror image that pattern piece. I didn't have enough to do the same on the back bodice. So what I've done is sew on a facing. So you can see that there, and I just overlocked the edge. When I wear it, the curve of my back means that it does lie flat like that. So it works. And to be honest, I was quite grateful to not have 4 layers of fabric around me, because it was quite a hot day. But I was also really happy to have a lined front bodice, because to be honest, I often like wearing Zadies without a bra, or with only something very lightweight. And having this extra lining here meant I could sort of get away with that, and it didn't feel too thin. So I really liked that addition actually. And I think that was the only modification I made. It's still got quite wide legs. I did lengthen it though. I always do that, and I tend to lengthen it by at least a couple of inches, whatever I can get away with my fabric meterage really. I'm trying to think if there's anything specific I had to do when lining. So, I mean, I think I just sewed the two front bodices right sides together along the neckline edge, and then turned them inside out and gave it a press. And then you can see I didn't sort of, because I didn't have a back lining, I didn't continue that sort of hidden seam. I have overlocked and stitched down the edge on the shoulder where it joins the back facing. Oh, I mean, it was pretty simple. Yeah, it felt like quite a nice, smart addition to my wardrobe, and a lovely thing to wear to the event. I don't think I actually have any photos of me in this one. It was dark at this point. I've only got photos of me in my day outfit, which was a waistcoat and trousers. I think I did ask one of my friends to take a picture, but it was not good. You needed some training. It was very dark and blurry. But yeah, I'll show you this one. You can see what I mean. I think the neckline looks a bit smarter. Now this I love. I don't get as much wear out of it as I would like to, but it feels, I don't know, it feels like it's quite a big dress. I really, really like it though. So this is the Zadie dress. Now for a long time there was just the Zadie jumpsuit, and then lots of people made Zadie dress hacks. So they used the bodice of the Zadie and they just made up their skirt, or used the skirt from another pattern. Now, Paper Theory, she released a skirt expansion pack, or dress expansion pack, with the pattern pieces for the skirt and guides for how to do inseam pockets. So you can buy that expansion pack. I didn't, because I felt confident to not do that. I know how to do an inseam pocket. I have a shape in my head that I just draft myself. But you can also use an inseam pocket from any other pattern. So I think that Anna Allen Demeter dress pattern has one. Loads of patterns do. And you might be able to find a guide online as well for how to do it. So that's up to you, how you feel confident. The dress, the skirt, is kind of just two big rectangles with inseam pockets. So I just sort of winged it really with that, and I used the Zadie bodice and I added these long sleeves in, which was my first sort of long sleeved Zadie. And I did it in this cotton, so it's got this nice vintagey look to it from Merchant and Mills. And it's really pretty and really soft. I think one of the things that makes it feel a slightly more full on and less everyday is this cotton. When I walk, it's very noisy. You can hear it like swoosh, 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 and it makes me feel overdressed just because it's got a sound. Don't know if that makes sense. But it maybe feels a little bit Little Women-y, which normally I would say brilliant. That's my general aim. But I think it just has to feel like the right kind of time for it. But I think also when I wear it in the autumn and winter, I'm layering up quite a lot. And then, you know, if I put like a cardigan or a jumper over it, it doesn't feel so much like I'm wearing a dress. Whereas if I was to wear it on its own, I think it would feel like I'd dressed up a bit more. So I'll be interested to see how I style this over the summer. I think maybe with some flat sandals and yeah, I mean, I just need to just get comfortable wearing it all the time. I'm sure I've had loads of other things in my wardrobe as well that took me a while to get used to wearing. But it's me made me now, so maybe I'll wear it one day, and then I'll get into the practice of feeling a bit more comfortable in it. Also, because I'm so... I go out and check on the chickens several times a day, or I often doing gardening on my lunch break. I quite like to have clothes I'm not so worried about getting dirty, and I probably would worry a little bit with this. But maybe for a weekend, we'll see. But it's finished really well. I'm really happy with how I made it. The last few Zadies I've shown you, you can see I've been using my overlocker that I got a couple of years ago for my birthday. And the stitching around the neckline's much neater. Now, I'll show you another hacked Zadie, and this is... I don't think it was my first one. I think the one I can't find is my first one, but this one I made very soon after. And it was... I think it must have been the summer of 2019 or 2020. No, 2019, before the world went very weird. Well, it's always been pretty weird, but before it went even weirder. It was an absolutely boiling hot summer. And at the time I was living in a city, and it was just, yeah, absolutely roasting. So I made myself this little Zadie, but it's got shorts, and I've got loads of wear out of it at the time. Looking at it now, I find it really interesting because it's got a lot of bad sewing on it. So I can really see how I've come on in those sort of 5 or so years, or however long it's been. There's some things where, like, I didn't have an overlocker, so you can see the zigzag seams down here. That's, you know, that's just kit. That's not really skill. But I'll show you the difference in the binding around the neckline between the dress I've just done and the dress I did 6 months ago or so, and then the top stitching of the binding on this one. I clearly wasn't fussed about sorting out tension. My line around the binding wavers all over the place. Now when I sew the binding, I don't look at the needle. When I sew at all, I never look at the needle going up and down. I pick a fixed point on the foot itself or on the foot plate, and I focus on keeping my fabric level to that. I don't look at the needle bobbing up and down, because if you do that, you're going to find it really hard to keep your fabric steady. So it's just little things like that that I've learned over the years, which really help keep things neat. I've got a video on top stitching, and it goes into top stitching tension. I am focusing on the sort of top stitching you'd do for like jeans and jackets and heavyweight things, but the tension rules and the like focusing rules kind of apply. So I'll pop that up, so watch that if that's something you find difficult. But to make the shorts, I think they're so badly made. I just cut what I thought would be right, but they turned out way too long, so I just did fold ups. But I don't know what I've done here. The inside is a real mess. There's a flap there. That's stitching. I think I was so keen to wear it back then. So yeah, I've learnt a lot in terms of like patience and skills over the 5 years. So I thought it'd be interesting to show you the evolution. But you know what? It held up. I wore it loads. I got loads of compliments on it. I made it in this William Morris print cotton that I got from Minerva.com, I think. And I learnt loads. And I was really proud of myself at the time. So it's all a journey. Each piece has got a value and a meaning. And you know what? Maybe I'll try and fix it up a bit and sort some of that stitching out and wear it again, because it's a really fun little thing. So I think something else about sewing the Zadie which is worth mentioning is there's a couple of things that are really worth doing neatly. One is the top stitching around the neckband, which I've already mentioned, but another one is the darts. So the front and the back of the Zadie have these darts. So the bodice lines up with the trousers. So the trousers got a dart here, or a pleat, I suppose, and the bodice has a dart here, and then they line up. Same on the other side. and also the same on the back. Now the waist hide does hide some of that join, but when I was making my first version, the right side and the wrong side looked the same, and I ended up making two left versions by accident. So the dart was facing outwards on the right bodice and facing inwards on the left bodice. I did undo it and sew it again, but it does make it look so much neater when this pleat line lines up really neatly. So that's something to just have a practice at. So that's something that's definitely worth marking the notches for, and just triple checking that you're sewing on the correct side if your right and your left sides look the same. So yeah, just a little tip on that. Otherwise, it's a fairly simple sew, but I think that the neckband or the binding and the little darts are just some of the things that make it look a little bit smarter if you have a bit of practice at that first. So that's all my Zadies, and yeah, I hope you found that interesting. I hope it gives you a bit of confidence to try the pattern, and to also a bit of confidence to know that you can experiment with changing the shape or changing the fit, making little alterations. I'd love to know if you've made the Zadie, what you thought, and if you've tried any of these adjustments yourself, or if there's anything different that worked for you. I'd like to hear it. Also, let me know if you like this sort of focus on a particular pattern, because there are other patterns I've made a lot of, like the zero waist gather dress, that I could talk through a bit as well. So yeah, hope you make a Zadie, and I hope you enjoy it. It's a great pattern for spring, well, for the whole year round, to be honest, but I often associate it with spring and summer. So yeah, let me know if you try it, and I hope you enjoyed the video. See you soon.